Welcome to episode 31 of the Thoughtfully Made Fibro podcast. My name is Amy Schur. I am a knitting pattern designer, a spinner, and kind of a beginner weaver as well, and sometimes I also sew. Today is mid-April, April 16th, here in St. Louis, Missouri, and because the weather has warmed up, I thought I would make a video talking to you about all the ways that I prepare my knits for storage now that I no longer wear them. So if you are like me and you have, a decent number of knits, then you might have to do this thing I call the spring shuffle, which is when the weather gets to be like this, like nice and warm. Like I would say around 65 degrees in the daytime pretty regularly. Then it's time for me to start thinking about getting my stuff stored. That's only about 18 degrees Celsius, but yeah, around that time is when I start to think about it and start to get my heaviest knits in the wash. This may vary for you depending on your knitwear, what you have, and your climate. Like for example, when I lived in California, I was a total wimp. And before I had acclimated to the climate here in Missouri, I basically wore like 60 degrees was as good as it got, and then anytime it got below like 65 or so, I'd be like, oh, it's time to wear my worsted weight sweaters and cardigans. But now 60 degrees to me is like, like summer. So now that things are warming up, I find myself wearing my worsted and DK weight or heavier items less and less. I wear very few accessories, and if I'm wearing a knit, it's really as like a decorative accent piece, like the one I'm wearing today. For example, I'll wear a fingering weight sweater or vest like this. This is the Oolong tank that's coming out next week. But I'll wear something like this over a turtleneck for a little bit of extra core warmth, but I won't be wearing like an all-over thick pullover sweater. So around this time is when the spring shuffle begins. I call it the spring shuffle because I can't wash all my knits all at once. To me, the limiting factor really is like the amount of blocking space I have. I have an old dining table in my basement, my unfinished area of my basement, where I lay out all my stuff, and I could get like one, maybe two sweaters on there. So I have to do all my washing and mending and depilling and all those things one at a time. And kind of as one thing is drying, I'll be soaking the next thing, or if I'm depilling one thing, the next thing is drying, or the next thing is soaking, that kind of thing. So let's go over a little bit the products that I like to use. We'll get right into that. So for washing my knits, my preference is using a bar soap such as Tuft Woolens. They have lots of beautiful scents, and even though I have fragrance-triggered migraines, none of their scents that I've tried so far have given me a migraine. I have tried only like the scents that I guess, based on their scent profile descriptions, that are less triggering to me, so your mileage may vary. But they also make an unscented, and I like using a wool bar because it's a little bit less waste. It takes me so long to get through one. I'll actually take off a slice and use it for a few washes, and then when that one's gone, I'll take another slice, and that keeps the main big piece of soap dry. That is a tip that the good folks at Tuft Woolens gave in the comments on one of my posts once, and that was super helpful. And what I do is basically as I'm filling a basin, or if you have a clean sink, I don't, but if you have a clean sink, you can use a sink. As I fill my basin or sink, I'll fill it with lukewarm water, and I'll run the soap between my hands. I'll put some footage in, but I'll run the soap between my hands, lather it up, let the lather run into the water, and because the soap has a higher fat content from the lanolin that they use, It's also very conditioning for my knits, and I also find it to be a very effective stain treatment. I will go over the affected spot a few times with the stick very gently without belting it, and that'll usually take care of any stains. So for all my hand washing, I use a bar soap, and then if I have superwash and I'm washing it in the machine, then my preference is for using Eucalan, which I have by the gallon. I think I got it on eBay or something like that. Let me just grab it. Okay, so here is my gallon of Eucalan. Looks like this. I've had this since, so this is pricey. This is like $80, but I've had it since, I want to say like 2019. I've had it for quite a long time, and I got the gallon size because at the time I was cloth diapering, and we used a lot of wool covers that are machine washable. So here's the thing, is that when you cloth diaper with wool, you get pretty good at washing wool and getting stains out of it. And so at that time we washed quite a lot, so I bought the Eucalan, and I've been using it since. It's lasted me 4 years, which is quite a long time. I wash all my delicates in it, so like my lingerie, anything silky, like silky cami tank tops, those kinds of things in it. And I usually try to build up a pretty good load. I'll have different superwash knits in different laundry garment bags, and to fill up a full load and to keep them separate in the wash. And then I use about, I would say half a tablespoon per wash, but that's how I get through so much Eucalan. If you're using Eucalan for hand washing, you don't need that much, because what you're filling in your basin is not the same amount of water that you'll be filling a whole washing machine with. So if you're not planning to wash using the machine, you do not need a huge thing of Eucalan. And even if you're washing the machine, unless you're washing the kind of volume that I am, you probably don't need the gallon of Eucalan. It doesn't go bad, so there's no harm in it. But a typical load looks for me like 4 to 6 pieces of wool base layers, just like merino, jersey, turtlenecks, and leggings, and a couple of sleep sacks for my kids. For my youngest, who's still in a sleep sack. She's in like a little footed sleep sack that's got wool content in it. And any socks that I have that are really dirty, superwash mittens, and then my kids' superwash sweaters that I prefer to machine wash, just because my kids are disgusting and they get so gross. So I prefer to let the machine do the work on that. A few things to remember when you are washing your knits is that how laundry works is you need a detergent or soap of some kind, you need water, and then temperature warm water will get stuff clean, also get dirt out. It will set some stains, protein stains, so anything that comes from like a person. Like, you know, if you're like cloth diapering example, pee and poo will not come out very well initially in a hot wash, so I always pre-wash them with like a warmer wash. And then it's just like a warm wash instead of a hot wash, so I don't set the stains. And blood particularly does not want to come out on hot washes. So temperature, water, detergent, so usually like a sudsing agent, and then time and agitation. So those are all things that work in a laundry machine to get your stuff clean. And when we're hand washing our knits, if you've ever noticed, the delicate cycle takes a lot longer than the regular cycle on a modern machine. And that is because the modern high efficiency machines use less water than the old machines that fill up all the way to the top. And because there's less water, it needs more time, more agitation. And I wash many of my clothes, almost all my handmaids, all my hand sewn stuff, even the woven cotton stuff, on delicate, because I know that the normal load will have a lot of agitation, action, and friction in it, which over time does wear out your clothes. So if you can afford to wash stuff on delicate, and it takes forever, but if you can afford to wash stuff on delicate, do. That'll keep your clothes in good condition for longer. And how that translates to knits is that when we wash knits, because we're not doing any agitation when we're hand washing in a basin, due to the felting situation, a lot of the factors that go into getting clothes clean also felts clothes. Water, heat, agitations. Those things will felt wool. So we cannot use those things very effectively, at least not all together, to wash our stuff. So I might be washing in lukewarm water, but I'm not gonna agitate it. And so when we wash in a basin, you need time. You need a lot more time. So typically I like to soak my knits in the basin for at least an hour, I would say, at least an hour. And then even though my soap is no rinse, I still like to rinse a few times if it's a particularly dirty item. And I might even soak it again in fresh clean water once it's been rinsed. And by rinse, I just mean filling up the basin, putting your knit in it, letting all the soapy stuff get out of the sweater, soak out of the sweater, and then pouring it out. That's literally it. No agitation involved. And so I washed a knit recently of my daughter's that she wears to school every day. And it was so dirty because she plays in the sand in it. And it took about 4 or 5 full soaks, like in the wool soap, to get everything out. But it eventually came out. So even if you have like a super filthy knit, you can still get it pretty clean. Some stains, I will say, can be permanent. And because I don't like to use bleach or vinegar, which will eat away at the proteins of the wool fiber, I prefer to leave a stain if I can't get it out rather than aggressively treat it. I will treat it with a bar soap, but you know, there's pros and cons to aggressively treating a stain. But even a very dirty one like my daughter's sweater, you can get some pretty decent cleaning on it. Get it to like a baseline of clean if you give it enough time. So for that particular sweater, I definitely needed to change out the water quite a few times just to get it clean because the water became so saturated with like sand and dirt, and it was just really gross. The other sweater, the one that I showed in the footage, I have it here, that I had to wash a couple times, is my coloring book raglan, which is knit and knitted in. That one I had to wash, I think, twice for a total of probably 2 hours soak time because that one was quite gross. I wore it to go to like the botanical gardens, to garden in the dirt, to play with my kids. So that one got pretty. I'm not precious at all with my knits. I wear them everywhere that I live. Like I live in them. To me, my knits are something to be lived in, not something to like sit on the shelf and only pulled out for special occasions. I love to live, like really, really live my knits. So my wash routine is pretty robust because of that. So once my stuff is washed, I actually just throw it in the washer to spin it out. This can take up to 10 minutes. This also sometimes stalls because my washer decides to toss this heavy item around because it's unbalanced and it doesn't spin. And then as it's tossed around, it gets felted. Ask me how I know. So when I do this, I have to kind of stand by the washer and make sure it's progressing and make sure it's actually getting to the spinning part. So your mileage may vary on that. Definitely like keep a close eye if you choose to use the spin function on your washer, or you can just squeeze it out with some water. Squeeze out the excess water with a clean towel. Any of that works. I lay my knits dry. I do not pin them. I do not use wires unless they have a lace element that needs to be blocked out, which they usually don't. Like honestly, I really only block lace one time. Once it's been blocked one time, it just kind of wants to go back there pretty naturally. So unless I really need to reshape something, I do not pin. So I just lay it out on my blocking mat. I'll put a link to the blocking mat I use below. Actually, I'll probably put a link to like all the products I spoke about below. I have some affiliate links from Knit Picks if you'd like to use them and help me out. But But I also made like an email newsletter series for all of this. It's not too late to join. I'll put a link in the description box below, but you'll receive emails summarizing each step. There's like 11 or 12 emails in the series, one per day, so that you can like take it in bite-sized pieces. Okay, once everything is laid out, I walk away and I start working on the next thing. And then I will go over my yarns collection and kind of take out the skeins. Here, I'll show you. I will take out the skeins just like this from my shelf, my cabinet. Kind of look over it, make sure there's no breaks, no pests. Give everything a shake. Shake out any dust or anything that may have accumulated. Give it a good airing because many of the pests that like to eat your wool don't like aeration. They like to be in like dark, still places in the storage, basically. So giving all your knits a periodic, all your knits too. All your yarn and all your knits a periodic shake out while they're in storage can be helpful to prevent pests. So on to mending and depilling. So I will insert some footage of myself depilling, but basically I use a product called the Gleaner. I'll also have a link to that below. I've been using the Gleaner, which I bought. It wasn't gifted or anything, but I bought it from, I think, my local yarn shop quite a few years ago. I like it because it has teeth, plastic teeth. Plastic teeth that aren't sharp. They're just really textured so that they scrape and pull at the pills and bring them up without cutting anything. I don't trust myself with cutting anything near my sweaters, like scissors, shavers, none of those things go near my sweaters. Somebody at my old yarn shop told me that they actually like cut through a sweater with an electric shaver. And while I'm sure that an electric pill shaver is a perfectly fine option, I personally don't trust myself. I feel like if there's like a 0.1% chance of the electric shaver hitting a stitch and breaking it, I'm gonna be that person. Like, I'm gonna be like the 1 in 1,000 people who makes that mistake. So I use a Gleaner. It works really well. I get everything down to a baseline so that it's ready to wear when it comes out. And the process of depilling also helps me kind of assess the knit and kind of examine it and make sure that it doesn't need any mending. When my knits get thin and there's about to be a hole, I find that to be the easiest time to mend. So I will show you a before and after. Here's one with a hole. Here's a sock with some holes in it, but they're so small and the stitches are still holding together. There's just like a single break on it. So when that happens, I do amend. Here's the other sock. I do amend with duplicate stitch because I'm not super good at mending with like a patch or a woven situation. I do it, but it looks really messy. I mean, this looks messy too, but it's on the bottom of the foot, so I don't care. But I'll mend everything and get that into storage. Yeah, so that's kind of my routine. I wash, I lay flat to dry, then I depill and I mend. Then I just fold everything up into like either, you know, those like bags that your sheet sets come in. I save all of those. I also save the bags that some companies send their yarn in. This one is from the Wandering Flock. Geraldine kindly provided me some yarn support one time and it came in this nice little linen bag. So I'll put my knits in the bag, get all of those into a drawer or into a plastic bin, and move on to the next thing to wash. And around this time is when I can decide if I still want to keep all my knits or if some of my knits should be retired. So far I've only retired a couple of pieces, and it's usually due to fit issues, like it just didn't fit me from the start or my size has changed. So I have retired a couple pieces, but I would say like 90% of my knits remain intact in my wardrobe, and I plan to wear them forever. I only knit things that I wouldn't mind wearing for the rest of my life. So, so yeah, that's kind of my little routine. Is there anything else I need to cover? I think that's it. I do have that email series I mentioned where you can follow along day to day with you're given like a task from all the things I spoke about every day to get your get into gear for your cleaning and take it in more digestible steps. I'll put the link to that below in the description box. And next week the Oolong tank is coming out. It's very cute. It's a v-neck tank with a lace panel and I love it, love it, love it. This yarn was by Big Little Young Curl Melanie. I think she's Cozy Cardigans here on YouTube. What else? I think that's it. I also have at the end of that news, the email series, there's also like a checklist where I put everything that I just talked about and probably a few things that I forgot to talk about just now on a little checklist so you can check it off as you work, because I love a checklist. So all of that is in that newsletter series. I will put the link to that below. Thanks for joining me for this little chat. I hope you found something helpful. If there's any tips about washing, cleaning, and storing your knits, I'd love to hear about it. If you know about any tricks and tips that I don't know about, please do teach me. I'm not an expert, even though I did cloth diaper with wool for quite a few years. But there's always something new to learn. There's always new things to try. So please drop all your best tips below. If you like this kind of content, subscribe, and I will be back very soon. Bye!